Hello everybody in Rackland. This is my contribution to video tutorial challenge number 1, where I had to choose one of the patches of the Doepfer A-100 example and build it in VCV-Rack. As you may know, the A-100 is an analog modular synthesizer built in the style of the classic modular systems of the 70s. It can be built from well over 100 original Doepfer modules and define the Euro-Rack standard, for which there are meanwhile over 5,000 modules of different manufacturers available. I decided to use a random melody and introduce the original patch first. The following text is from the description of the patch on the Doepfer website. This patch creates an automatically random melody. The sound source is a VCO A-110 that is processed by a VCF A-108 in this example, but each VCF or VCA will work. The quantized random control voltage for the VCO is generated by the A118 random output that is processed by one of the A129/3 attenuator offset generator and the lower section of the A156 quantizer. The rate of change is controlled by the rate control of the A118. The basic tone note is adjusted by the offset control of the A129/3, and the spread, distance between high and low notes, by the attenuator control of the A129/3. The setting of the 3 switches of the A156 define the type of the random melody. All semitones, only minor or major scale, only tones from chords, and so on. The trigger output of the A156 is used to trigger the A140 envelope generator for the filter. It is possible to synchronize the patch, e.g. with a sequencer. For this, the trigger input of the A156 has to connect it to the main clock source. So we need a VCO, a VCF, a random voltage, an attenuator offset generator, and a quantizer. Let's start from left to right to arrange the modules as in the original patch. The module A118 is a noise and a random voltage generator, where we do not need a noise but a random voltage. Specialist for random voltages in VCV-Rack is Soy Model So from NIST, which supplies 4 different types. As an attenuator offset generator, I can think of 2 modules, Doepfer from AS and the dual attenuator from Befaco. Today I'll choose the latter. There are many quantizers in the VCV-Rack, but I have to search for one with trigger output for a long time. But then I find it in the Scale Quantizer Mark II from Amalgamated Harmonics. An alternative is Quantum from ML Modules. But since I have never used the Scale Quantizer before, I choose this one. Finding a VCO isn't really difficult, but it's hard to choose which one, so I decide to make 3 versions with completely different oscillators. a filigree variant with annuli from South Pole, a variant with a lot of modulation with a XFX wave from Blamsoft, and a brute variant with Noxious from Vult. The same applies to the filters, which should support the sound character of a VCO. With annuli, I used the new Leica diode ladder filter from Lindenberg Research. With XFX Wave, the growler from Squinky Labs. And with Noxious, of course, Freak from Vult. Finally, we need an envelope generator, and here I come back to Vult's Slab, which comes with a built-in VCA. Let's build a patch. Wiring is not really a problem. Doepfer's description is quite clear. I choose the smooth in fluctuating voltages 2 output for my power source. From here I go into the attenuator and from there into the volt per octave entrance of the quantizer. This has the possibility to quantize 8 different input signals, but now we only need 1. I leave the pitch on C and choose the scale Aeolian, because I like it very much. From the volt per octave output of the quantizer, I go to the volt per octave input of the oscillator. I also use the trigger output of the quantizer to trigger the envelope. Alternatively, you can of course use another trigger or gate pulse, as it is generated by a clock or even a pulse from SOI model SO. From the oscillator I go to the input of the filter, and from the low pass output to the VCA input of Slab. The VCA output is connected to the audio module or usually to a mixing console beforehand. Slab receives the trigger pulses of the quantizer via the gate input. The envelope is triggered anew with each trigger. The envelope is output at output out, and now I have to decide which parameter the envelope should control. In the original patch, this is the frequency of the filter, so I select this input on the filter and turn up the corresponding slider. Our patch is completely wired, but you can't hear anything yet, because the attenuator is still closed. If I turn the attenuator slider to the right, a harp glissando begins, whose pitch increases the further the slider is turned to the right, the lower the pitch becomes. I adjust the keynote with offset. Now we have to work on the sound until we like it. If I now replace some components as already mentioned at the beginning, the whole thing sounds completely different. But we always have a self-running, randomly changing melody, which we can also influence by processing the input signal. To have more modulation possibilities, I add the A times B plus C from Doepfer after the attenuator. This is not a simple attenuator, but forms an overall signal from up to 3 input signals, here called A, B and C, according to the formula, which also gives it its name. As input signals, I use not only the signal originally going from the attenuator to the quantizer, here in input A, but the signal generated by SOI model SO in fluctuating random voltages 1 at output smooth in input B, and the output signal from output 2 to the power of n of quantized random voltages in input C. In principle, however, any other control voltage can also be used, e.g. from caudal from volt, which provides 12 different frequencies, or LFN from squeaky labs, whose output voltage consists of the 5 CV controllable individual frequencies. Experimentation is the order of the day here. Only with this addition to the patch and through the aforementioned variations, very different random melodies can be generated. Just try it out for yourself by replacing parts of the patch with other modules. This actually very simple patch is in reality a goldmine.